Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. This is your second Royal Ascot previewing day 2 of the meeting. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm joined, as I was on day 1, by oddschecker's very own tipster, Andy Holding, and racing journalist and broadcaster, Johnny Ward, as well. We did our pleasantries in day 1. We spoke about the way that you need to ride, or the kind of horse you want to be going after at Ascot from Andy. We heard about the weather and everything else, and I heard about how you guys are doing. So we're going to ignore all pleasantries and move straight into the preview here. No time whatsoever for small talk, and we're going to start with the Queen Mary Stakes. Before we get into this, though, do download the oddschecker app where you can get not only Andy's tips but all our tipsters straight through to the app. Also the best prices as ever, as we'll be talking through in this podcast and video. Bookie offers free bets and place terms crucially as well. So do get the app downloaded right now as we get into the preview. And kicking off with the Queen Mary, Andy, will come to you first. Love Reigns 3-1 favourite, Dramatized 9-2, Maria Branwell 8-1, Katie Content 10-1, 14-1 Omni Queen Pillow Talk, Olivia Meralda 16-1 bar. We're recording this on Thursday early afternoon, so these are pretty early, fresh after 5-day decks as well. So as is always the case, prices and of course runners subject to change as well in the coming days. But Andy, how do you see the opener?
Yeah, but obviously being a time figure, man, the sight of a Wesley Ward trained horse puts the fear of God at me, to be honest, because you only go on visualization and reputation, hype, a few videos of them working, etc., to kind of gauge how good they are. I did actually kind of try and tinker around with Love Reigns' performance at Keeneland and compare it to Golden Pal, because Golden Pal ran over the same C&D. I think it was either a couple of weeks afterwards. It might have even been early, but either way, there wasn't a great deal of period of time between them, so the ground shouldn't have been too much different. They both called or raced supposedly on good ground. And Love Reigns was quicker from 3 out, and the overall time was in comparison with the older horse. So she's obviously got to be very, very fast. She got over that fast ground at Keeneland as well. Similar to Lady Aurelia, I think we're dealing with that kind of horse, just looking at her as a specimen and the way she quickens and keeps galloping. So she's probably the right favourite on previous history and what we can expect from her. So it's obviously going to take a useful one to beat her. But if there is one to beat her, it could well be the UK trained Dramatized, who I've backed for this race and put up as one of my horses to follow for the season when we did that podcast a week or two ago. She's just very, very good. Her number when she won at Newmarket was exceptionally good for a 2-year-old. And it was just the way she went about her work that day. Showed push-button acceleration to pull well clear of a well-fancied field. And already the race has worked out really well. The runner-up from the George Boy camp has won a couple of races subsequently in pretty convincing fashion. So everything about Dramatise is absolutely bang on here, other than obviously track form. If she handles the track on the day, she gets a good draw. I'm sure with her cruising speed and the way she quickens, she'll be there or thereabouts. Whether she's good enough to beat Love Reigns, I don't know. But on the numbers, she should be certainly good enough to beat the rest of the UK horses.
Dramatized there, the one for Andy in the opener, 9-2 best price with plenty of firms. Win only, would you go, or would you be backing Dramatized each way?
Yeah, I'd go each way. I've already backed her each way, so that bet's safe. But if there was like 4 or 5 places on the day, you'll get a maximum field here as well. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
What is the maximum field? I'm just having a look here now. It's 20 odd, isn't it?
yes.
24, something like that. There'll be a clamour to get in. I know that George Scott, who won with a horse last night called Yahtzee at Hamilton, they're going to roll the dice with her. And she's number 30 on the card. And he said to me this morning he was a bit worried that he might not get in. Well, if he's worried he won't get in and he's 30, he can guarantee that there'll be a maximum field of 24 for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny, how do you see the first race on the Wednesday?
Yeah, I am going to agree with Andy here. I'm going to give up 2 horses. One of them is Dramatized, really, really speedy pedigree, and obviously there are plenty of nice 2-year-olds as well this year, and absolutely bolted up first time out. That form is working out really solid, looks all speed. I'm going to give Lady Tilbury a mention as well. Not quite as flashy, but in fairness, after she won on her maiden, David Marnan said that this was the race she was going to go for. She then had to maybe prove that she was up for it by beating the Colts of Tipperary. And she actually did it very well. Like, maybe the distance wasn't that much, but she travelled like the winner throughout. She looked like a horse would be kind of suited by a big field. David Marnan, he's had a couple of Royal Ascot winners for small numbers, which isn't bad. And I think she's worth her place. I mean, it's kind of, again, I don't know what to compare the form with the US horse. The US Navy flag element of the pedigree of the Wesley Ward horse will worry me, because anything to do with Warfront I tend to stick a mile away from. Maybe she'll be okay, but I just don't like anything to do with any Warfront horse or anything by a horse by Warfront. I tend to avoid. But maybe she will be that good. But I think Lady Tilbury looked very good at Tipperary, and to me looks like that bit of experience will stand her as well. She's quite professional. She should run a big race.
Lady Tilbury 16-1, and what was the first one?
Dramatised.
And that was dramatised.
And dramatised again. Sorry, 9-2. So both Andy and Johnny agreeing on dramatised at 9-2, and Lady Tilbury 16-1 best price. That's with Coral. The short is 10-1 elsewhere. Johnny, will stick with you for the Queen's Vase. Changing of the Guard is the 5-1 favourite. Joint favourite with Haffit 5-1 as well. Nahani 6-1, Newfoundland 7-1, Al Kareem 10-1 with Elderov also 10-1, 11-1 Perfect Alibi, and Ruler Legend 12-1, 14-1 bar.
Yeah, Andy mentioned trying to make the run in here. I thought Changing of the Guard had a reasonable chance at Epsom. He was made to look pretty slow, and it's asking a lot if he were to turn out here again. He'd probably make the run, and looks like 1.6 miles will suit him. Whether or not, he had a very hard race at Epsom, and he lost fourth in the closing stages after sort of having the run of things. And to me, he looks a little bit vulnerable. I thought this was a tough race, to be honest. Newfoundland, his stablemate, is obviously half interesting. Whether it's a good enough race that he won at Navan last time, he does look like he'll stay very well. And I don't know, the likes of Emily Dickinson coming in as well for Aidan. She was a bit disappointing in her trial for the Oaks. I found this race quite difficult. He has Anchorage as well. For me, he's my pensive selection. He just looks like a horse who will appreciate stepping up and trip. Very, very tender handling by Ryan Moore at Curragh the last day. You look at the way he was ridden at Thurles, ridden like a complete and utter stayer as a 2-year-old by Shamie Heffernan. And it'll be interesting to see the riding arrangements here. I'd be against Changing of the Guard. I think he's quite ordinary, and hopefully Anchorage runs. And if he does, I think he'll be ridden with a lot more force than he was at Curragh when he was very much looked after by Ryan Moore.
Anchorage 20-1 with Paddy's Betfair Sportsbook and Unibet at the moment. The one for Johnny, and a negative for Changing of the Guard at the top end of the market. Andy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, obviously Changing the Guard is the sexy one that represents the Derby. I'll be amazed if they run him again here after having such a hard race. They'll probably go with the likes of Newfoundland, the ones that missed Epsom and have probably been saved specifically for this race. Yeah, he's got an amazing record, Aidan, in this contest, so you'd have to respect anything he runs. The interesting runner for me is Elderov, who won over an extended mile as a 2-year-old, so you knew that stamina was going to be very much his key component as a 3-year-old. And he won a very, very hot race at Newcastle on his seasonal reappearance. There was about 4 or 5 fancied in that, and they went a proper pace, and his stamina again was the key to his victory. And you look at his pedigree as well. He's bowed to Derby out of an All at Sea by All at Sea. He's related to horses like Alagnac and Algamita, horses that stayed 1.5 miles, 1.6 miles. So he's crying out for further than 1.5 miles. And like I say, if you go back and watch that race at Newcastle, that's where he did all his best work, in the back end of that 1.25 mile race. So yeah, he's just a very, very interesting runner. And I like his profile as well. He hasn't had too many hard races. He's improving. We don't really know how good he can be. We know he's good, but whether he's going to be up to this standard, only time will tell. But I've got a sneaky feeling he's not a million miles off some of these.
Yeah, Elderov is currently best price 10-1. That's with Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook. Again, a short's 13-2 elsewhere. So that 10-1 really is best price you're going to get currently. Move on then to the third race on the card. It is the Prince of Wales Stakes. Baybridge, the progressive Baybridge versus Michael Stout is the 5-4 favourite, ahead of the Japanese Globetrotter Shariar at 130. State of Rest 7-1, Grand Glory 8-1, Lord North 8-1, Dubai Honor 14s, Adaya 16-1, Broome 33-1. Race cut up a fair bit. today, Andy. How do you see it at this stage? Again, for anyone who didn't listen to day one, go back and listen to it. But with Shahryar, you've got an unknown quantity in taking up a fair chunk of the market.
We have, but I think racing fans around the world have got to hugely respect anything the Japanese run nowadays. They cleaned up over in Dubai, but they had a very good carnival in general terms. And Shahryar was one of the stars, wasn't he? He won the Shima Classic. It was a stellar lineup, proper Group 1, run at a good pace, and he won it with a bit of authority in the end. But he's going to have to be very, very good to beat Bay Bridge. Bay Bridge is the new kid on the block for me in this division. When he won the London Gold Cup last year, me and Sam would do the figures. We were like looking at each other thinking, yeah, this lad's going to be a group horse sooner rather than later. And as times worked itself out, he's found himself in the sort of bracket that we thought he might get to, i.e. Group 1 race. He's now rated 121, courtesy of his victory at Sandown, when he went by Mustardaf as if he was standing still. And listening to Jim Crowley's comments the other day when he was interviewed on TV, he said he could not believe it that horse went by him within the twinkling of an eye. His back end work was exceptionally good on the clock. His overall time was good. He's just tailor made for this track as well. You look the way he travels, the way he hits the line, the way he finishes off his races. Everything about him is just top class. And Sir Michael's obviously now got an embarrassment of riches to choose from, hasn't he? In all divisions, including obviously Desert Crown, the Derby winner. Keeping these two apart is going to be the problem, I think, towards the back end of the season, because I do think Bay Bridge at some stage will get a mile and a half. But for now, he's the best thing I've seen for a little while, over a mile and a quarter on these shores anyway. So the Japanese better bring their A game to the table with this fella.
Just whilst we've got you on, using Bay Bridge as a segue into the Derby and a Desert Crown, always good to get your thoughts when you see a scintillating performance like that. How strongly and how highly do you rate, let's say in the company of other Derby winners in the last 10 years or so, Desert Crown? Where does he rank?
Well, I thought it was a good Derby going into it. There was a lot of horses with a lot of big figures, good reputations. Your Pisbadils, your Changing of the Guards, Walk of Stars. There's a lot of horses with a lot of untapped potential. They'd already run some good time figures as well. They all represented the best trials scattered around here, then everywhere. Obviously, the Chester ones, the Ballysacks, the Lingfield Derby trials. They all look good. Obviously, Desert Crown won his Derby trial in really convincing fashion and was a worthy favourite. The winner of the Dante, and yet he managed to beat all the others very, very comfortably. It was just the way he moved through the race and that instantaneous turn of foot, which stood him out from the rest. And the good thing about him as well, he's got a bomb-proof temperament. He went through all the razzmatazz, the fireworks, the well-documented fireworks, the jazz on the hill, and it just didn't faze him at all. He had loads of energy left for the back end of the race. It's going to take a really good one to lower his colours. Obviously, once he gets against the older horses, and there's a good bunch of older horses, then we'll see how good he is. But he just stands out. Just a very, very good horse, and I was lucky to see him in the flesh. So I'm obviously going to think even more highly of him because of that.
Always special seeing in those, in a classic no less, when you see a horse coast to the front pretty much on the bridle. Always amazing to see. Johnny, what did you make of that performance? And also just a word on those Westover backers who seem to think that had Rafe Beckett's horse had a clear run, would have been closer. Surely not. Surely Desert Crown was idling in front, wasn't he? Had the race put to bed.
Yeah, it would have been closer, and then that horse sets up to Ledger Trip for sure. But Desert Crown, the way he travelled in the race, he by far the classiest horse, and considering his inexperience, it was a hell of a performance. And as Andy mentions, for Sir Michael Stout to have these two horses all of a sudden around the same time, after so many barren years, it's funny the way it works out. But I thought it was a sensational performance. I think, presuming he gets a Midland draw on the Arc, I think he's going to be very hard to beat.
He will be. Let's get back to Royal Ascot. Always wanted to chat about what we can. But Bay Bridge here, 5-4. Andy, keen to be alongside and with Bay Bridge. Would you agree with that, or are you looking to find one at a bigger price to take him on with? Currently, of course, most firms are a quarter of the two after, I think, 7 runners at the moment?
Yeah, and that's obviously an issue if you want to back the likes of State of Rest too. For me, I mean, it was a staggering achievement. He was going to win 4 Group 1s in 4 different countries here when he went into running the Tassos World Cup. And for me, he was unlucky because high definition, completely left field for me. He made the run, and he hadn't been ridden like that at all, and he very nearly pinched the race. You could see at the top of the straight, he quickened, and Joseph O'Brien's horse had just caught out of his ground. He's ahead just after the line, but just couldn't quite get there. And I think he was the moral winner of the race. He will run well, but Bay Bridge for me, totally the new kid on the block. Best horse the stallion has produced by some stretch already. And that performance in the Brigadier Gerald was absolutely sensational. I mean, Adib looked like he wasn't even there, not to mind the horse in a second. Absolutely bolted up. And for me, he's one of the certainties of the week here. I'd be amazed if he were beaten.
Amazed if he were beaten. See what the Japanese have to say about that. 5-4, Bay Bridge favourite there for the Prince of Wales. 3 more races on the card on Wednesday, starting with the Duke of Cambridge, Saffron Beach 9-2. I mean, a very, very open market there. Saffron Beach 9-2, joint favourite with Lights On. Mother Earth 5-1, 6-1. Bashkirova 8-1. Potapova. Siblia Spain 8-1, November 8-1, Primo Bacchio 20s alongside Bounce the Blues 33-1, Canella 50-1, Thunder Beauty. Johnny, will stay with you.
I think Mother Earth, I think she'll leave that performance behind her. I think they rode her too promptly on that occasion. You look at her performance when she ran against Bide here in October, far stronger race than this. She was given her usual sort of hold-up tactics on that occasion. She looked very good in her reappearance as well. I think she'll run very well. I presume this is the race she'll go for with her. As Andy mentioned, there are some options for these O'Brien horses, but she's very solid each way. Small stakes for me this race.
Small stakes each way. Mother Earth 5-1. Andy?
Yeah, I've had relatively strong views, as you can already gather, about lots of the races we've discussed already, but this one is totally the opposite. Largely due to the fact that I just think there's too many unknowns. I don't know much about Sibla Spain, with a great respect to Christopher Head's horse. Who's going to run? Who's going to represent Cheveley Park? I think is very important to know, because they've got 3 entries at time of recording. Lights On, the likely target seems to be this race for me. She's had a rest since her last run, whereas Bashkirova and Potapova ran, of course, at Epsom. Finished first and second respectively that day. So you would have thought that Lights On naturally would come here, particularly Sir Michael Stout's got such a good record in the race. But Ryan Moore's jocked up to ride her in the Queen Anne, which just seems a little bit odd. If she was to come here, Lights On, I'd make her a bet. She's a C&D winner, which looks great. She won well at Sandown. So she would be the one for me at this current moment in time if I didn't know any jockey arrangements, so I knew what was going on. If she didn't come, then obviously Saffron Beach would have to be worthy of a huge mention. 4th in a Grade 1, of course, or Group 1 over in Maidan, behind Lord North. And, you know, she's beaten a lot of these fillies at a Grade 1 level. So I think she deserves to be right up there in the conversation who's going to win this race. But again, because I'm probably going to put nothing up as a bet at this moment in time. But if you were going to twist me, and you always probably do in the end, I'd probably go with Lights On and hope that she comes here and not runs in the Queen Anne.
There we go. We said it was an open race, and we managed to positive mentions to the top 3 in the market. Lights On 9-2, Saffron Beach 9-2, and Mother Earth 5-1. Tentative at best from both Andy and Johnny there for the Duke of Cambridge. On to the Royal Hunt Cup now, where Dark Shift is the 8-1 favourite ahead of Astro King at 9-1. Legend of Dubai 12-1. Busala 14s, Totally Charming also 14s. Magical Morning 16-1. Great Gadian 20-1. Mujtaba 20s as well, and a couple of others around about the 20-1 mark too. Another race where plenty have come out, Andy, including the only horse I'd backed Antipost in Royal Ascot, which is really exciting for me. Andy, how do you see this?
Yeah, funny enough, I managed to dodge a bullet only because the bookmakers were so stingy and offering up as short as 8-1 about one ruler anti-post, and I thought, there's no one going to take 8-1. I can get 7 or 8-1 on the day with 6-7 places after his eye-catching run in the Victoria Cup, but he doesn't make the gig, which is a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, obviously the draw is going to pay huge. Was going to be very important to know come the race day. Last year, low numbers dominated. Real World won it over on the far side. When it went against Conventional Wisdom, when we all thought it was going to be high based on what we saw the previous day. Draw aside, I think there's one horse that just jumps out the page to me in a race like this, because it just, from a reliability factor, I'm pretty much sure that he's going to run his race, and he loves it here at Ascot. That's Symbolise. His last 2 runs here have both been behind Aldari, who I think is, other than Baid, probably one of the most exciting horses in his division. I think he's worked his way through the handicap ranks now, and he's dining, or will be dining, at the very top table. And of course, Connections, the Hamden Maktoum colours, have got the option of Baid and Aldari at Ascot, depending on which way the weather goes. Let's say, for instance, later on in the season, the QE2 is on bottomless ground. They probably wouldn't run Baid, and they'd save him for, like something like the Champion Stakes, or even the Irish Champion Stakes on better ground when he's actional, be much more suitable to that terrain. But symbolise, like I say, that those 2 runs just representative of very, very high class form. He looked as good as ever on his seasonal reappearance behind Mutasabek in a conditions race, but that's basically up against a Group 2, Group 3 horse. And we know the Baldwin team are in great nick as well. So if he gets a good draw on the day, and I think he's only got undone once at Ascot, and that was due to the draw, then he's got to be there or thereabouts. So, yep, symbolise for me each way. What was it, 16 to 1?
20 to 1.
20 to 1. And I think Harry Davis has already been booked up to ride it as well. So the Baldwin team are obviously out to take advantage of that young Mr. Davis and eject David Probert, who usually rides the horse.
20 to 1 symbolised there. The one for Andy in the Royal Hunt Cup. Johnny, anything you fancy in the what is it, the third last race? The second last race of the day, or the third last?
Yeah, I got to mention San Andreas, so I seem to lose money on every time he runs, and he has a chance. He's tied in with Bo Pedro on the running in the Sovereign Path Handicap at Leopardstown last year, and this race is well worth watching back because he was running off the same mark. Bo Pedro was running off the same mark in 103 as he runs off here. Now, you have to forgive him his form this year, but he's no issues with straight tracks, whatever. He bolted up at Cork before over a straight 7, despite the fact 7 was too short for him. And on that run at Leopardstown, this horse is a really, really good chance to win the handicap if he can bounce back to that sort of form. Jessica Harrington's horses are in grand form at the moment. I think they've probably been training for this race, training for Royal Ascot. And as I say, he's in off the same mark. Big field is fine for him. Straight course is fine for him. I think if he's a bit of luck and run and he's back to form, 25 to 1 or thereabouts, and he gets okay with the draw, I think he's very interesting.
Bo Pedro 25 to 1, as you say, they're pretty much across the board. A couple of firms already going 5 places. I'm sure we'll get more on the day as well. But Paddy's, Betfair Sportsbook, SpreadX and Betfred, the 4 firms currently 4 places at the moment, 5th of 4 rather than a quarter. Sorry, 5th of 5 rather than a quarter to 4. The penultimate race on the card, but the last race that we have prices for is the Windsor Castle. The Antarctic is the 6 to 1 favourite ahead of Wallbank at 9 to 1. Your Sats 12 to 1, Bolt Action 12 to 1, Far Shot 12 to 1, Olivia Meralda 12 to 1. Andy, coming to you first here on Wallbank, because for those who've listened or watched day one's preview, they will know that you're a big fan of the horse who beat Wallbank on debut, who's favourite for the Coventry at time of recording. Could be a nice little related double, couldn't it, for those two to both go in?
Yeah, I'll be pretty convinced that Wallbank will run big in whichever race he ends up running in. I've had a few good on him from the Norfolk, so I'm hopefully he sidesteps this. I know Ross Arai's been jocked up to ride it according to this, but I wouldn't actually take that as read just as yet. It'd be surprised if Ammo Racing go down the route of running him in this weaker race and not go for the prestige of winning a Group 2 with a horse that they think is their best 5 furlong sprinter or 2-year-old sprinter. That would just seem really odd. But look, if he runs here, I think he'll win it. And I think he'll win it easy if he does run in the Windsor Castle, because he'll just be by an absolute country mile the best horse in the race, based on his track form, his run behind Noble Star, his time figures. He's just a very, very fast horse, Wellbank. So yeah, he'd be my number one choice if he does run here. I'll just pay a little bit of regard as well to another horse who clocked quite a big number last time out, having looked as though he was fairly exposed, and that's Woodoo of Donica O'Brien's. Donica's 2-year-olds just seemed to be coming through quite nicely. He had a nice win at Cork last night. It had a couple of runs, a nice filly, Bado or Badeo, whatever it's called. And I was really impressed with the way this horse won last time out at Navan. He got beaten by the Antarctic twice prior to that, so you think, is that as good as he is? But he just seemed to come of age last time out, and he's like I say, his time figure was exceptionally good. He hit the line really hard. That's the first time he's run over a really stiff track. I know Nace is stiffish, but not stiff as Navan. So I think Ascot will suit him. So yeah, I'd certainly have a look at him at a price, Woodrow. But yeah, if Wellbank was to come here and I was to do my money not in the Norfolk, then I'd certainly have to try and get it back big time.
What price do you reckon he'd go off if he did turn up here?
I'd be amazed if he wasn't favourite.
Mm.
What
But
price
it's
is it
interesting because as you say, 9-1 now, but as you say,
he's 9-1 at the moment. Yeah, he'd be favoured if he runs. There's absolutely no question in my mind.
9-1 at the moment. You'd think, when a horse is jocked up, that would be factored into the price maybe, because if it, anyway, 9-1 as it stands at the moment will certainly shorten if intentions are made clear to take up this entry. And Wadeo 16-1 best price. That's with Coral. Johnny.
Yeah, I think that's basically not enough respect for David Loughnane. He's actually a Galway man like myself, and he's done really, really well in England with his horses. And like, he was raving about this horse after he won. As Andy says, the form, he just looks so fast. I'm hoping that Little Big Bear doesn't come here, because I'm not sure he's going to beat him. And I hope he steps up to 6 furlongs. Wadeo was good the last day. He looks like he's steadily improving. But this lad, I mean, I'm very surprised he's 9-1, to be honest. If he were with a bigger yard, what price would he be? He's so much speed. To be honest, I'm going to be rushing away from this call to back that.
9-1 best price, Wallbank. I mean, are you not concerned that he might go to the Norfolk, as Andy said?
Yeah, that's the concern as well. But I mean, what price does he go if he runs? And this is probably the race he'll run in. I don't really have a line to my fellow Galwegians yard, but I'd probably dutch my bets and do both. But 9-1, yeah, I'm happy to take that, and maybe we'll see what sort of moves he makes the next couple of days, David. But that looks I don't know. I think he's just the trainer's been underestimated here, and David Loughnane's done very well in his short few years so far in Britain, and has probably just been waiting on a good horse like this.
Put it like this: he's a shorter price to win the Norfolk. And the Norfolk is a much tougher race than the Windsor Castle, traditionally anyway. Yeah. But I can tell you that for nothing, that his numbers are miles better than anything else in the Windsor Castle. And yeah, it makes no sense why he's 9-1 to win this. And yet, like I say, I think he's as short as 6-1 to win the Norfolk.
Especially without there's no exchange market. If he was trading 30 on the exchange for this because he wasn't going there, then you'd understand it. But
yeah. Whether connections are just looking and think, well, we want a Royal Ascot win, and we want to make sure that we put the right pegs in the right holes, and just have the prestige of having a winner rather than trying to go for gold, as it were, and win the Norfolk.
Weirdly, the Norfolk isn't listed in his entries, but that might just be a glitch. It's still being priced up. Anyway, I mean, we'll get to that.
There's no interest for the Norfolk.
It'll arrive tomorrow.
I think the Norfolk's on Thursday, yeah.
So after 5-day decks tomorrow. Well, if he's put in.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, if you listen to this podcast and you get a chance to look at the entries tomorrow, because they'll be through for Thursday, then if he's not there, then you just crack on and back in for nines for this race.
Yeah,
and that would be a bet at nines, as we've said.
Yes, right. So a bit of a puzzle there to try and find the value. And also, by the time this goes out, it'll probably all have become clear, and what we're saying will make absolutely no sense. But that is the beauty of these preview pods, how things change so quickly. The last race on the card is the Kensington Palace Stakes, which we saw the first running of last year in 2021. No prices here, but we can see a list of many of those who are currently in to race on the day. Any standing out? I'm not going to run through the 40 odd horses that are in, but Andy, Johnny, any that you've kind of got a ring around, looking forward to seeing when prices do come out?
I'll just give a quick mention to Zia. I really fancy Celtic Crown that won the race to Curra the last day, and she's only starting off in handicap. She's only a 4-year-old. I thought that was a big run considering her lack of experience, but obviously you're not even sure about the weights here. No prices, so it's definitely one to wait until Monday night, I think.
Yeah, Andy.
I think we need to have a look at last year's race and with a positive view to connections coming back to try and either salvage something or win it again. Obviously, Don't Tell Claire won it, so she's got to be given a huge mention. And State Occasion was second to Don't Tell Claire in that aforementioned race back in October. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Royal meeting. Of course, it wasn't. It was back in October. But I think State Occasion is definitely one I'll have a look at. The Rafe Beckett team are in really, really good form at the moment. Anything he's running here this week, I'm going to be taking a serious look at. The fact that she's run really well around here, obviously stands her in good stead. She was a good win on the all-weather 18 days ago, so she should be absolutely bang on. And if she gets a good draw on the day, then I'd definitely be having a look at State Occasion.
You mentioned Rafe Beckett. I was having dinner last night in Cork and trying to watch the Ireland game on my phone, and basically put up on Instagram. So there was a photo of Samuel Beckett on the wall, and he was drinking a pint, like kind of in a get this point down me type manner in the photo. So after the game, I basically just put up like Beckett knew the score with a photograph of Beckett on Instagram, and Fran Berry replied to the effect, "Yeah, Rafe did when he got rid of me." So yeah.
No way.
His horses are in good nick, all right.
Love it. Yeah, no prices, as you say, but State Occasion, one to look out for. And as Andy says, maybe all of Rafe's horses over the course of next week. Maybe he'll do some luck after his chance in the Derby. Met traffic in running, and as you say, Johnny, for you, Hazier for Joseph O'Brien, one to keep an eye on come Monday evening. That brings our Wednesday, day 2 of Royal Ascot preview to a close. Thank you very much to both Johnny and to Andy for sharing their thoughts. This is a bit of a marathon recording session. We're about to record day 3 in a second, so do keep your eye out there and subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel. You can find all of our preview content and plenty of other feature content up on there as well. And you can find all of these previews as a podcast as well. If you're bored of looking at our mugs, you can find them on all podcast platforms too. So do check that out and download the Oddschecker app, where you can get Andy's tips every day of racing, as well as the best prices available across all the bookmakers on the app, and free bets, bookie offers, place terms as well, the quickest place to find all of those things. So do download that now ahead of next week's racing. Hopefully a couple of winners and a bit of value in there for day 2. Do check out day 3, but enjoy the racing either way. And always, as we always say on the Oddschecker Betting Show, hopefully some value here, but do ensure that all of your betting is done responsibly.